The 31st case of the Mumon come, Joshu saw through the old woman. Having done now all the Mumon cases together, we finished with the case, the 31st. A monk asked an old woman, "Which way should I take to Mount Gotai?" The old woman said, "Go straight on." When the monk had taken a few steps, she remarked, "He may look like a fine monk, but he too goes off like that." Later, a monk told Joshu about it. Joshu said, "Wait a while, I will go and see through that old woman for you." The next day, off he went and asked her the same question. The old woman, too, gave him the same reply. When he returned, Joshu announced to the monks, "I have seen through the old woman of Mount Gotai for you." Kanon-in, with its abbot Joshu Jushin Osho, Joshu was in the south of the Chinshu precept, and not so far away from one of the 4 most holy mountains for pilgrimaging in China. This one mentioned here of Mount Gotai. There was also in China the Dabi mountain in Shishensho, and Kawaii where Kanon-san was honored, and Tendaizan in Fuketsu. And there was at this mountain many spiritual seekers. Manjushri was the bodhisattva of letting go of everything, and he was the one who was supposedly residing somewhere on this mountain. This is the essence of Zen, letting go of everything. Many went there to be able to encounter the bodhisattva Manjushri actually. At a younger age, Master Joshu had gone himself to Mount Gotai and had written a poem about how this is not the only place of Manjushri. The Manjushri is everywhere, not limited to a place where images are honored or where he's reputed to be. As Bodhidharma also said, to see one's own true nature directly, and in doing that, become Buddha. In our mind, when there is not a single speck of anything, that is the truest sutra. To not have even one thought, one single thought, not one whatsoever. Just as when Rinzai introduced the official of his city to his zendo was full of monks, and the official, although he already knew all about this, being an awakened disciple of Master Isan, the official properly asked, "Well, what are they all doing in that zendo? Are they doing zazen?" And Rinzai said, "No, they are not doing zazen." "Well then, are they studying sutras?" "No, they don't read sutras." "Then what are they doing?" In one false swoop, all of them are becoming enlightened Buddhas. Our training has to be seen like this very clearly. Everyone came to Mount Gotai, and there was a small tea shop at the foot of the mountain where almost everyone would stop to ask the way, and the old woman of the tea shop, whenever she was asked by everyone, which is the way to Mount Gotai, this old woman would say to each and every one of them, "Go straight." And after walking 6 or 7 steps straight, then she would snicker and say, "Well, he looks like such a fine monk, but he goes off that way too." Clearly, this was not your regular old grandmother, not unlike the one that challenged Tokusan. She was not your regular old grandmother at all. She said, "Oh, you look so fine, but you go off that way too." And eventually, all the monks at Mount Gotai had compared notes and found out they had all been done in by her. After all, seeing that she'd said the same thing to them, and hearing about it being talked about, Master Joshu, the teacher of all these monks who were complaining, said, "I'll go check her out for you." And the next day, as he promised, Joshu went down the mountain out to see the old grandmother and to the tea house. And he asked her exactly like everyone else had, in the same way, "What is the way to Mount Gotai?" And she answered the same. And after he'd walked a few steps, she sighed loudly and said, "A fine-looking monk, but he too goes off just like that." He went back and told everyone that he had seen through her closely and clearly. all of them had had the same thing said to them, and so did Joshu. But he is saying that he had seen through her. But he didn't say how. This is the point. The old grandmother had said the same thing. Even if we are confused about it, the life path is the same. Going straight is one answer to that. But had anyone asked, what is it for? When she said going straight, what would she have said? In the place where there is Mount Gotai, in fact, there is no such thing. No east, no west, no north, no south. In the mountains, we can easily mistake our path and once again go back to where we left off and find it. But in our life, there is only one chance. There are no makeovers. We have to see that there are no second chances in how we do our life. Master Obaku had said to the monks in his assembly, in China there are no people in great temples, there are only drinkers of dregs. You all can't go here and there to various dojos, or you will waste your precious chance of your lifetime. But one monk challenged that statement and said, well then, what are those many dojos? But Obaku was not putting down the dojos. He was only saying not to go wandering wastefully around from dojo to dojo and spend your energy superficially checking things out instead of getting down to it. And he replied, I didn't say there were no dojos. I am talking about there being no people who are awakened there. When we awaken and open our true eye, we can do whatever we need to, but we cannot look away from it and doing it, and that we have to do it. Even in our daily life, there is no place to be lax about this. This is what the Buddha said when he was asking to his disciples, what is the Dharma? And one moment, every moment is important, was what one disciple said. And he said, that is only the outer skin. Another one said, the amount of time during a meal eating it, and then there was a landslide outside. And he said, no, that is not it. And the last one said, we can't waste even a single second, not a moment, not a breath. Every moment is most precious. And then this is what the Buddha said is the true Dharma. A life that we won't even get to walk again ever. 5 billion years ago, the first speck of life was born. We are not born from air, but though we are born from our mother only once, billions of years ago, in this universe, was there another place, even then, where there was life existing? Any living thing that has stayed alive? We all have been trees in many of our former lives, but we have now become humans. The climate has changed, and all our ancestors who could survive billions of years that seem just like a yesterday, but in only a time so short of 2,000 years ago did the Buddha come forth. And until then, it had been only the survival of the fittest without that great wisdom. If we live in the same time and are born as humans as the Buddha was, even if we lived at that time in history, in the same area, only 10 to 20% of the people had ever heard the teaching of the Buddha at that time. As the Buddha has taught us how rare it is that we should be born as a human being, how rare it is that in this world of life and death, we should be living and alive, how rare it is to be able to encounter a teacher of the truth, how rare it is to be able to use our life for the realization of the true teaching of that teacher. We are very, very rarely able to encounter the truth, and how few are there who become able to realize it. If we have this amazing opportunity, we have to do it thoroughly. while we have the chance and not waste our energy on worshiping idols and not for only our own good fortune, but for many to use it in leading others on this same path. But if we don't truly catch that deepest meaning of being alive and truly experience this practice of what life is, that is when we waste it. And this is what Master Obaku was saying when he said that the dojos are only another place to live instead of becoming aware, and how truly many people may attempt, but that Buddhist state of mind may seem so far away. But if there is no continuation in this, then we cannot know any of this eventually just by reading a sutra. This case, in fact, about the Joshu seeing through the old woman was used in the ending of the great Daito Kokushi's writing of the Kaion Kokugo. Later, Hakuin even commented on the sharpness of Daito Kokushi of adding that into his Kaion Kokugo. For what did Joshu go down the mountain and check on that tea shop lady? Joshu already knew what she was up to, but he went down the mountain to open up the eyes of everyone, the truth of this to each and every one of them. In the Blue Cliff records, in all 100 cases, at the final one, with the poetizing of Secho, we have the excellent words, "The coral branches shine and reflect the moon's light." Here we have to see the ultimate truth of the Buddha Dharma. And if we think Joshu just went down to check the old lady out, we make a big mistake. This is how we have to see carefully what is going on in this case where Joshu saw through the old woman. Here we have Master Hakuin approving of this koan as the most abstruse among the challenging abstruse koans in that collection. Master Hakuin taught that in the Kaion Kokugo, in the 7th section, he gave the words of the strong speech of Daito Kokushi that was so telling and deep that Master Hakuin shivered and trembled. Even if you have hundreds of disciples, how few can transmit the truth, like a candle in the daylight, but never knowing whether they will all burn out or not, or if they can really transmit it truthfully. People don't see how it is that at any moment this keeping going of the truth could actually end. The fragility of the Dharma is often spoken of. Master Hakuin would say it, to lose your money and then have to go to prison for that, because the money in China was all the country's possession. So when you lost it, you went against the country's possessions, and also you'll be put into prison for having lost the country's money. In this way, we have to be severely meticulous when we practice, or we miss the point completely. In all of the Teidai Temple, in all of the ancestors being read, it has to be seen. It is not about only one of those. It has to be each of them, all of them, every single one of them has to be a truly awakened master, or it would not have continued. And we have to deeply feel the importance of this. What did Joshu go and see the old lady for? Why did he do that? To even use one tiny bit of his huge amount of efforts that he gave for that, that is for him the most important thing for his students' deepening. Mumon gives a commentary. The old woman knew how to work out a strategy and win the victory while sitting in her tent. Yet she is not aware of the bandit stealing into the tent. Old Joshu is skillful enough to creep into the enemy's camp and menace their fortress. yet he does not look like a grown-up. Upon close examination, they are both at fault. Now tell me, how did Joshu see through the old woman? And she did not know that he was even in there, the bandit. Mumon comments that the old woman was also expressing and manifesting her gratitude to the Buddha and for the Dharma in the ongoing keeping going with this. One blind monk after the next, she was guiding for their training. And she did not know about Joshu. He was a bandit stealing into the tent, yet he does not look like a grown-up. Again, using bad-mouthing to praise Joshu, the great Joshu, going to a tea shop? She must have been the real thing. She had to be the real thing. But why would he have wasted his precious time on these bone-breaking efforts to go investigate this old lady? Mumon says it clearly. And if we look closely, she didn't see that big bandit had entered her shop. But they are both at fault. However, with their deep sincerity and profound caring, we see it. And the old woman checking each and every one, every monk, never getting bored, never getting tired of doing it and saying that. And no one was even noticing it. Now tell me, how did Joshu see through the old woman? Joshu said he checked her out, but he never once said how. Do you all understand this? If not, you are all looking away from the point, focusing elsewhere. As Shoju Rojin has said in his last poem, it can't be said, it can't be said. The truth can't be spoken with the mouth. Seeing this, we see clearly why Joshu didn't speak to his monks of how he checked it out. If one did, then it wouldn't be any longer that it couldn't be said. It is only to be realized, not spoken. We all have to understand this directly and clearly. Then Mumon gives his poem. The question is the same each time. The answer too is the same. In the rice there is sand, in the mud there are thorns. Even though the answer to the monks and Joshu were the same, they were very different. She saw through him as well, clearly. The monks didn't see the sand in the rice, and in the mud there were thorns. If we are carelessly walking barefoot in the mud, we will cut our feet on such thorns. Go straight, she said. Joshu saw through this clearly. A totally different world was being seen by Joshu. Mumon Ekan poetizes.